Have you ever wondered how a spoonful of honey ends up on your table? It looks simple. Sweet, golden, natural. But behind that tiny drop lies an extraordinary process, one that involves thousands of bees, precise teamwork, and a level of organization that rivals even human industries. This is not just food. This is one of nature's most fascinating production systems. Today, we uncover the hidden journey of honey from flower to hive, and finally, to your home. Everything begins with flowers. Flowers produce a sugary liquid called nectar. To us, it's invisible and insignificant. But to bees, nectar is energy fuel for survival. Worker bees leave the hive in search of these nectar-rich flowers. Guided by sunlight, scent, and even the Earth's magnetic field, they can travel several kilometers in a single trip. When a bee lands on a flower, it uses its long, straw-like tongue, called a proboscis, to extract nectar. But here's the interesting part. The nectar doesn't go straight to the bee's stomach for digestion. Instead, it is stored in a special organ called the honey stomach, separate from its own food system. This means the bee is not eating the nectar. It's collecting it. And while moving from flower to flower, the bee unknowingly performs another crucial task: pollination. Tiny grains of pollen stick to its body and are transferred between plants, helping them reproduce. So even at this early stage, bees are not just making honey. They are sustaining entire ecosystems. Once the honey stomach is full, the bee returns to the hive. But the journey doesn't end there. In fact, the most important transformation is just beginning. Inside the hive, the nectar is passed from one bee to another through a process called trophallaxis, a mouth-to-mouth transfer. It may sound strange, but this step is essential. Each bee adds special enzymes to the nectar. These enzymes begin breaking down complex sugars into simpler ones, turning the raw nectar into something more stable and suitable for long-term storage. Think of it as the first stage of processing, like refining raw materials into something usable. The beehive is not chaotic. It is highly structured. Every bee has a role. Some are foragers, some are processors, and others are builders. The partially processed nectar is deposited into hexagonal wax cells, perfectly engineered structures built by bees themselves. But at this stage, the substance is still too watery to be called honey. Fresh nectar can contain up to 70–80% water. Real honey, on the other hand, contains around 17–18%. So how do bees remove all that excess water? They use one of the simplest yet most effective techniques: evaporation. Worker bees fan their wings rapidly, creating airflow throughout the hive. This constant movement of air slowly reduces the moisture content of the nectar. It's a natural dehydration system powered entirely by the bees. As the water evaporates, the liquid thickens. Its sugar concentration increases. Its texture changes. Once the honey reaches the perfect consistency, the bees seal the cell with a thin layer of wax. This is called capping. At this point, the honey is complete. Sealed honey can last for years, sometimes even decades, without spoiling. Its low moisture and high sugar content create an environment where bacteria cannot survive. In fact, jars of honey have been found in ancient tombs, still perfectly preserved. This is not just food. It is one of the most naturally stable substances on Earth. Beekeepers carefully manage hives, ensuring that bees remain healthy and have enough resources. When the honey is ready, they remove the frames containing capped honeycomb. The wax caps are gently opened, and the frames are placed into a machine called an extractor. By spinning the frames at high speed, honey is pulled out using centrifugal force. The raw honey is then filtered to remove wax particles and impurities. Some honey is heated slightly for clarity and shelf stability, while others, often labeled as raw honey, are left minimally processed. Finally, the honey is bottled, transported, and eventually arrives in stores and kitchens around the world. Here's something to think about. To produce just 1 teaspoon of honey, bees must visit thousands of flowers. A single bee produces only about 1/12 of a teaspoon in its entire lifetime. That means every jar of honey represents the life's work of many bees working together with incredible precision. It is not mass production. It is collective effort at its finest. So the next time you taste honey, remember, it is more than just sweetness. It is sunlight transformed into nectar. Nectar transformed by chemistry, and chemistry perfected by one of nature's most organized societies. A simple spoonful with an extraordinary story behind it. And perhaps the real secret of honey is not just how it's made, but how something so small can represent such a vast and beautiful process. And that is how nature's liquid gold makes it to your table. I hope you learned something new today. This is Professor Puppy. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for your next lesson. See you in the lab.